everyone, and welcome to Living Healthy and Aging Well. My name is Ken Haglind, and we are broadcasting live from the AM 950 radio station, and we are located at Bryant Lake Regional Park in Eden Prairie. It's another beautiful day here in the Twin Cities, and I am grateful to be here with you, and I hope all of you listening are doing well. We are on the air every Saturday from noon to 1 to talk about your health and your life. We cover a wide range of topics to help you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. I want to thank all of you that leave us messages on our radio show phone line. We so appreciate hearing from you, and we welcome your comments, questions, and topics for future shows. Also, if you are interested in being a guest on our radio show, please call or text us at 612-999-3426. You can also contact us on our website at livinghealthyradio.com. There you can find information about upcoming guests as well as listen to our previous shows. We look forward to hearing from you. We are adding new listeners to the show each week, and we are so grateful for that, not only here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, but also throughout the country. You can find podcasts for all of our radio shows on the AM 950 radio website, and we can also be found on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and many other podcast and streaming services. You can also watch our broadcast live on the radio station's Facebook page at AM 950 Radio. Joining me in a few moments will be Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here to answer the question, what is a funeral photographer and why are they needed? And also to discuss the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. For more information, you can visit her site at mnfuneralphotography.com. And we're going to talk more about that here throughout the show. But you will enjoy listening to my conversation today with Nell Aburto. If you have a question for us today, there are two ways to reach us. First, by calling the AM 950 radio station, and our friendly show engineer, Dan, will get your call on the air. Our phone number is 952-946-6205. Once again, 952-946-6205. Or you can text us your question at 612-999-3426. Now, don't worry. If you missed our contact numbers, I'll repeat them throughout the show. Also, please do not wait until the show has ended to call or text us with your questions. We often receive many of the same questions after the show has ended. So if you have a question, many others do as well. So please try and contact us during the show, and we look forward to answering your questions. All right. I want to welcome my guest for today's show, Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. Welcome to the show, Nell.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we had a great conversation before the show started, and I'm so grateful to be able to share what you do with our listening audience, because I didn't know that your service existed until just recently, and I pride myself on being very involved with senior care and elder care and all that stuff, and again, I get surprised once in a while.
Yes, it's not
people
a thing.
Like you. Yes, no, it's great. It's great. So we're going to have a great time today talking about that. So before we begin our conversation, though, please tell us about your background.
So I'm a portrait photographer. I was trained professionally, and out of school, I started my photo career as a wedding photographer. For about 10 years, I photographed weddings. That essentially trains you for any kind of photography. And, of course, I always photograph children and babies and families along the way. And so I love working with people and photographing people.
Yeah. So that's great. That's very traditional. Everyone knows photographers, and they've done that through their school years and, like you say, weddings. So what inspired you to start your own business and focus it on funeral photography?
So my parents, several years ago, both of my parents died, and my father died first, and then my mom died about 3 years later. And so at my dad's funeral, my sisters and I have two sisters, and we worked really hard to make sure that his funeral, and both of my mom's as well when her time came, we just worked really hard. We wanted it to be uplifting and beautiful. And so my sisters and I spoke at both funeral services, and the grandchildren sang this beautiful song about how families can be together forever. Our friends made beautiful centerpieces, and we made this memory table for both, like just things my mom had painted and all the things that people put on memory tables for their loved one. And of course, all our friends were there, and our family was there, and no pictures. Because I'm a photographer, I wanted to take pictures. And so I had my camera and I tried to take pictures. And I think at both of their services, I got about 2 or 3 photos. But of course, I'm the daughter, so I couldn't do that. I was talking with people and mourning with people and just taking care of things. And so my idea came after my father's funeral. And then when my mom's funeral came, again, no pictures. And I just thought, I'm going to do this because if I want it and didn't get that, I know other people would want it too. And so that's traditionally how most funeral and memorial services work. Like everyone comes to the funeral, and I wanted to remember that. And on my website, it says remembering the celebration of a beautiful life. And it's a blur. Funerals are a blur for people. We're sad. We don't remember a lot of things. And so my photographs help them to remember their day. Yeah. They remember it better. We all remember things better with a photograph. And so that's how my idea started. And I started in March of 2020, which is a great time to start a business.
Well, we're just going to shut the country down.
Yes.
And we're going to stop having funerals and weddings.
Right. I did photograph a couple during COVID, but they were my inspiration, my parents. With many things, they're always my inspiration. So they were with this too. Wow.
Think about it, though. You're hosting, you're coordinating. I mean, you're a master of ceremonies. You're doing everything as a family on an event like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. It takes the same amount of effort and time that a wedding does.
Yes.
I mean, you're trying to notify people. I mean, there's a lot of work.
Right.
And yet nobody would ever think of just doing their own photography at a wedding.
No.
I mean, it's become now where you have a videographer, you have a photographer. I mean, you have coordinators. I mean, it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And those are the same people that you may not see for your whole life until the funeral.
Right.
And how natural it would be to have somebody there.
Right.
To help remember and memorialize. Mm-hmm. Because like you say, you've got a memorial table or memory table, and you've got all these things that if you don't take pictures of those things, those are lost.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. That's why I'm amazed that
it is amazing.
When your name came up, a few weeks ago, I thought, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah. And most people don't because nobody thinks of it in the moment. Very few people.
Well, you're dealing with a crisis.
Right, it's
you're
a
dealing
crisis.
With a shock.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and like we talked before the show, we as humans just tend to deny death.
Right.
And it's there. I mean, obviously in my profession, we deal with it every day.
Right.
But even still, if I were to ask my colleagues, have you ever heard of funeral photography? I'm sure they would say no.
No. And some people, and clearly there have always been, like, people want to take photos. They don't know if they should, like just a random family member, they feel uncomfortable or they don't know if they can. And I say, yes, you definitely can. In fact, I have a friend who, at her father's funeral, some relative was just going around taking photos, and my friend was like, what is this lady doing? Why is she doing that? And even though she just got a few photos after, like weeks later, and they were just on her cell phone, she was so grateful to have those.
Yeah.
Like she was grateful to have something to help remember this celebration.
Right.
And so I think it is okay for people to take photos at funerals.
Yeah. Well, in our profession at end-of-life care, people try to be a caregiver, but also a spouse or a daughter,
Right.
And you know what? It's almost impossible to do those both really well, and usually one will exhaust the other. And so we just say, no, hospice is typically no cost to you. So why wouldn't you have hospice come in and help take care of your loved one that's at end of life?
Right.
And people, it's like they need someone to tell them that. Just like what you're doing today with our audience is to tell them, no, think about this as an option. And you'll again, the memories for the people, the legacy that leaves is really profound, because you're right, people just don't know what to do at a funeral.
Right. And you don't want to work when you're in mourning or your loved one is dying.
Right.
You want to be able to be with them.
Yes. No. So much so. All right. The music is cueing us out now. It's time for a short break. We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here to answer the question, what is a funeral photographer and why are they needed? And she's here to discuss the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. If you have a question for Nell, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Haglind, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. Welcome back, folks. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Haglind, and joining me today is Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here to answer the question that's on everyone's mind. What is a funeral photographer and why are they needed? And I would add, why are they important? And she's here to discuss the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. If you have a question for Nell, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or just text us your question at 612-999-3426. Nell, how can our listeners contact you if they have questions or would like more information?
So they can go to my website, which is mnfuneralphotography.com. Also, even a quick Google search, I will be the first to come up if you just type funeral photography, Minnesota, or possibly even just funeral photography. My phone number is 612-483-3067, and people can call or text me anytime.
All right. And we'll give that number out throughout the show, folks. If you missed it, don't worry. We will repeat that several times. All right. Well, last segment we talked about you and what inspired you to start this area, this field. I mean, you're really an innovator in the field, in my mind, because I've never heard of this before.
Right.
And it makes so much sense, especially with the things that I've experienced in my career and in the field that I'm in. It makes so much sense. And so anyway, well, let's talk about, what does that look like? We've talked about the need and why it's so important to have someone like you there, especially not having a relative or someone else try to be the photographer. They miss out on all the conversations. I mean, you can't work and do it. That's why there's specialists that we hire for birthdays and weddings and everything else.
Right.
So so tell us, what does it look like when someone has you come in and be the photographer for at the funeral?
So I take pictures of everything that is happening during the service, during the day, all of the happenings or events of the day. And so I look for details. If you look on my website, I have I photograph the flowers. I photograph the photos I photograph the urn or the casket, people. I photograph overviews, details like the program, or here on my website, there's the couple's wedding rings together on a scripture that was meaningful for them. There was one funeral he was a middle-aged man, and it was the happiest funeral I've ever photographed. He was a kid at heart. There were balloons. The funeral was on his birthday. There were cupcakes. He was a gamer, and there were just video games and candy out. And I photographed all of those things, and it was just really beautiful. There's another one, this man who also tragically died young. They had a candle at his urn, and it says, "I have a bad feeling about this."
From
Quote
Star
from
Wars.
Star Wars.
Quote from
yes.
Star Wars, yes.
And so I look for that. I look for beauty in the day. There's always sadness, of course. People are mourning, they're crying, but there are a lot of joyful moments too, and I always look for that. And so there's just so much beauty at a funeral, and people talking and just catching little moments. I remember one funeral service of a man. He passed away in a motorcycle accident, and he was a father and had young daughters. And I happened to be standing in the right place at the right time, and I saw somebody give these little girls necklaces. And so I photographed that, and it was a really beautiful picture. And when the wife got these photos, she was so happy because that was whoever this person that gave them these necklaces was a very important person. And so she was just so thrilled that I could capture that. And so I look around. I'm looking for emotions at funerals. And that's something I don't think random guests can do. Like, you can't do that with your cell phone.
If you're an attendee,
right?
Exactly. If you're an attendee, you're experiencing it differently,
right,
than you are, who is a third party, but you also bring your professionalism and your eye and your timing and all the things that make for a great photographer. You're bringing that to the event, and
I do bring that.
just looking at these images too, which are phenomenal. Again, you can see that you're an experienced professional photographer. These images are phenomenal, and they're both in color. Some are black and white. I mean, they really create a mood and a feeling just by looking at these images. I mean, wow, just powerful. And I would encourage people while we're on the show today to pull up your website, MN Funeral Photography, and scroll along with us. I mean, just again, beautiful people in both smiles and also, in deep thought, as they're reflecting. And what a great, I mean, just like I say, taking pictures of the flowers and pictures of important elements, not just the people. The people obviously are very important that attend, but there's so many other things that are there that represent the life of the person that's passed.
Right.
Yeah, boy, some of those military ones are just, wow. And even just, I think sometimes we forget about the architecture of the place that is hosting or having the ceremony. I mean, there's some amazing places obviously anywhere, but in Minnesota that people have the ceremonies at, and they are just amazing.
They are. And I photographed a few services at Lakewood Cemetery, which is so beautiful.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, the military, lots of military services at Fort Snelling, which are just so moving to me. I always respected the military. My dad was a Marine, so of course you got to love the Marines.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as I started photographing funerals there, I just have such a great respect for military people and military families, and I don't know, those services are really special. Oh yeah, photographing them.
I've had the honor of going out for some of our patients that have passed, and our chaplain would be there, or somebody. And boy, if you ever want to reset your life, get back on track, go to a military funeral. I mean, Fort Snelling is right here in the middle of the Twin Cities, and boy, to go out there and witness that is really something special. Now, have you? So you we only have a few seconds left here, but let's hold this thought for the next segment. But are you able to then, because I know they'll have a service in a building, but then they'll take the casket to a location. Are you able to follow them to that as well? So you're able to be flexible in terms of where you're taking the pictures. Okay, the photos.
I will take photos wherever the family wants me to go. So obviously, a lot of people have the service in a church or a cemetery or a funeral service, a funeral home, and then we drive to the cemetery. Okay, and that's also it's just a beautiful experience to be at that graveside service. Yeah. Wow.
All right, the music is cueing us out here, so it's time for a short break, folks. We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here to answer the question, what is a funeral photographer and why are they so important? And also discuss the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. If you have a question for Nell, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or you can text us your question at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Haglind, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. Welcome back, folks. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Haglind, and joining me today is Nell Aburto, owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here to answer the question, what is a funeral photographer and why are they so needed and important? And she's also here to discuss the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. Before we return to our conversation with Nell, I want to mention this show is brought to you in part each week by Minnesota Hospice. Minnesota Hospice is an independent, locally owned medical practice serving our Twin Cities communities with comprehensive end-of-life health care. The team at Minnesota Hospice provides patients and family members with award-winning end-of-life health care services. You may not be aware that hospice brings compassionate medical, social, emotional, and spiritual services to your home with typically no cost to you or your family. Please do not wait to learn how hospice care can benefit you and your loved ones. If you have any questions regarding end-of-life care or support, please contact the compassionate team of experts at Minnesota Hospice. They have nurses available to answer your questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their phone number is 952-898-1022. Once again, 952-898-1022. Or just visit them online at minnesotahospice.com. All right, let's return to our conversation with Nell Aburto. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us at 612-999-3426. Nell, how can our listeners contact you if they have questions or would like more information?
Yes, people can always call me. My phone number is 612-483-3067. Or you can just do a quick Google search for Minnesota Funeral Photography. The website is mnfuneralphotography.com.
All right, fantastic. And some of the questions that are coming in are, is it only in the Twin Cities, or what area are you able to? I know you said to me off the air, people will fly you to funerals in other states.
Yes.
So you're not opposed to that?
I am not opposed to that.
Okay.
Typically, I have photographed 2 out-of-state funerals. Typically, I'm in the Twin Cities area, but I'm always willing to travel anywhere. Okay. Northern Minnesota, other states.
Yeah.
I am always open to do that.
Well, and so I want to share with the audience, in talking to you, I've gotten to know you now for a few minutes, and you are so passionate about what you do. I mean, I just really appreciate you being innovative and just breaking into this really an important, really unmet need.
Yeah.
And as we were talking off the air, how important it is to capture these images for not only the people that attended the funeral, but for those who maybe couldn't. Mm-hmm. And then future generations can see all these important things. I mean, it really brings to life a person's passing and all the things that were important to them. And that's why I just encourage people, you don't really realize all the elements that are there, not only people, but symbols and memorials and all kinds of things. And what's so great about what you do here is you can see the emotion. You can feel the emotion of these photos here. And I just encourage people to go to mnfuneralphotography.com and just see a small sampling of the work that Nell does. And in talking to her off the air, I said, boy, it must be sometimes tough to not get emotional with these amazing services, military services, people of all different ages that have passed, and you said it's sometimes tough. I mean, you become kind of absorbed into this amazing ceremony and all the emotion there. So I would encourage people, if you have any questions about what Nell's services are, and we're going to talk more about that here this segment, but reach out to her. I think this is something you really should explore, and I know I'm going to be encouraging my colleagues and people I know to make sure that people know about this, because sometimes people end up passing quicker than people think. Either it's an accident, or even if it's end of life, end of a disease process, it always comes up too quickly, and then they don't know what to do. I mean, we don't generally plan, even though we're always talking about advanced. I know we want to, but we just sometimes just want to deny that there's death, that there's an expiration date on us all. And anyway, so let's talk more about your services, your experiences, and give people more insight to what you do at a funeral.
Sure. So one thing that some people ask me is they hear funeral photography and it sounds a couple of people have said this sounds a little morbid. Do you photograph the body like old in Victorian times? And generally, no, I don't. If the family asks me to, then I will. But generally, I don't. I always try to take photos of people like paying their last respects to the deceased. But I'm typically to the side or from the back, just so that they're always tasteful. And my equipment, I mean, I have professional equipment, of course, so I can take pictures from afar. Long lenses, which is much different. Things like that.
I think one of the questions was, what do you use for your equipment?
Yes.
It's not just an iPhone
no.
a cell phone. You actually have have professional
equipment. I try not to be seen. Like, I truly don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want them to see me. I don't want to be there. And so I try to stay as anonymous as possible.
Wow, those are amazing photos.
I'm far away. I try to stay far away just so I'm not intruding on people's emotions, because they are vulnerable. Like, people don't want photos. Like this one here is an officer just at the side.
Yeah,
he's just praying at the side of this of his friend. Yeah, right. And so I try to be far away, just not to intrude. I don't want to intrude. It's their day. It's their grief.
Wow. And one of the things that I think as I'm looking at these photos is you just have a great way of capturing the emotion of the people there. And I think that can be forgotten. I mean, what I like about this is it can trigger so many memories of what you have experienced. But like I say, there's so much emotion. There's grief. There's mourning. There's a human element here, and that all of a sudden this event is done and the day is done, and you're left with what just happened.
Right. Or if you can remember.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Wow. Just amazing photos here. Yeah. I just encourage people, just check that out and just give you a call. Yeah. Well, I like the ones there with, some of the, boy.
The military giving the flags
giving
to
the
the
flags.
wives or the mothers is it's so moving.
Oh, so one of the questions is, do you do video as well as photography?
So I personally do not. I have a videographer that I will hire.
Okay.
And she comes, a couple people I've used. And so, yes, that is an option if they are available to photograph or to video the actual service.
Right.
And this particular service, he was a police officer who died. And I was taking the photos. I had my videographer videoing, and he made a really beautiful video of, again, same kind of thing, happenings of the day, not just the service, but other people walking and people talking. At the end of the day, we had family members could come and sit in a chair, and he recorded them talking about this soldier or this officer, because this officer, he had a little baby who was not even a year old.
I see that.
And so they were talking almost to this little baby, telling him about his dad, and because he's not going to remember his dad.
Right.
And so, yes, we want to remember as much as we can. And so that was a really sweet opportunity for the videographer to take videos of his friends talking about him and stories of this little baby's dad. And it was just really sweet.
That's priceless. I mean, that family and that child.
Yes.
I mean, that is just priceless.
And I would like to do more of that in the future.
Yeah. Wow, that's just fantastic. We only have a couple minutes left in this segment. What else do we want to touch on here with your services?
Well, I guess I want people...
Or other questions that people have asked you.
Most people... I guess one of the things that I want people to know is just how important this is to me personally. It is a job. I do love my job, but I photograph every funeral like I would for my own family member or my friend. I want all the photos for them. Like I want the photos I didn't have, and that's my goal. Right. To try to help people grieve. These photos help people in the grieving process. One mom, I photographed her daughter who was a teenage girl, and she emailed me and she said, "I love these photos. I look at them every day. They're priceless to me." Another family, they weren't ready to look at their photos yet. They had them. I don't know how long they took before they looked at them, but it just kind of helps in the grieving process, like processing what has just happened. Like, okay, here's our funeral. Here's, like, it helps them in their grieving process, which is just, it's amazing that these photos help people, and I'm so grateful that they do, and just how meaningful people tell me that they are.
Well, I think it can contribute to the healing process.
Yes.
Just because, like I say, that all of a sudden that day is a blur, and you don't have a chance to just sit in it and reflect and embrace it. And I think it's just so important. Yeah, you're right. They may not look at it for a while, but eventually, to look at that, I just think it's priceless. And it's just the emotions and just the ability to reflect and understand who was there and some of the emotions. And I think our memories can play with us sometimes, and to be able to see what happened, and then even like hear what happened with a videographer. Yeah. I think it would be just so healing. And it also helps, like you say, with the children, to hear people talk about their father or their mother. Yeah. Would be great. All right, the music is here to cue us out again. It's time for a short break, folks. We'll be right back. to continue our conversation with Nell Aburto. She is the owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here answering the question, what is a funeral photographer and why are they needed and why are they so important? And she's been discussing the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. If you have a question for Nell, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Haglind, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. All right, welcome back, folks. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Haglind, and joining me today is Nell Aburto. She is the owner and lead photographer at Minnesota Funeral Photography. And she's here answering the question, what is a funeral photographer and why is it so important and why are they needed? And she's been discussing the uncommon and virtually unknown genre of funeral and celebration of life photography. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us your question at 612-999-3426. And we are getting lots of text questions coming in, so please feel free to give us your question. Nell, how can our listeners contact you if they have questions or would like more information?
So they can go to my website, which is MN, as in Minnesota, mnfuneralphotography.com, or any quick Google search, funeral photography, I will come up. Or my phone number is 612-483-3067. And again, I always understand it's an urgent. When people are calling me for photography, it's an urgent time, so people can feel free to call me or text me anytime.
Yeah. In fact, I think you say on there you can reach me from 8 till 10 at night.
Yes.
I mean, and that, again, we talked about this, how even though we know people are sick or ill or whatever, and we just deny it, and we don't plan for it. And I had a guest on recently that was a doctor, and people should have an advance directive in place. So if you're unable to communicate your wishes on what you want done to you, for you, he said about 5% of people have it.
Wow.
And so the doctors or the hospitals in the emergency room, they literally have no idea what you want. And they may be doing things that you do not want done, but they have to do that because that's what they have to default to unless there's an advance directive. And so anyway, it's the same thing. We just deny it. And again, to have you, and we can talk about this during the segment here, but you do more than just funeral photography.
Yes. So I have two businesses actually. I have two websites. The other is called Pink Parasol Photography, same phone number, and that is more geared toward personal branding, headshots. I do have a family section because I think people need to be photographed with the people that you love while you're alive. Honestly, we need to be photographed with the people we loved. I wish I had photos of my mother and my father when they were 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, because usually we're photographed when we're little. I photograph families, typically only families with little children. And then if you get married, you get wedding photos, and then you're never photographed again professionally for the rest of your life, unless sometimes people are photographed at their church directory or things like that. But I love photographing grandparents with their grandchildren, generations. I think everybody should have generational photos because, again, when somebody does pass away, they're going to go looking for photos of you. And what are they going to find? Not very many things. And especially women, we're always taking the photos. And so we don't exist in photos anyway. And so I urge people very strongly, whether it's me or you have another photographer, just be photographed with your children. Be photographed with your parents. Be photographed with your grandparents. I have some beautiful photos of my grandmother and I. There's 2 of them cooking together in a kitchen by my uncle, who he happened to be a professional photographer back in the 70s. But I cherish those photos, and I wish I had more.
Yeah.
And so be photographed with the people that you love. And don't be afraid to be photographed yourself, because someday, again, your children are going to come looking for those photos, because they always do.
Right. Wow. So if someone hires you to do that, and you take a lot of photos, how do you get those photos or get those images to them so they can select the ones they want to have you print? Or
yes.
How does that process work?
And is this for the funeral photography aspect?
Yeah,
or
funeral.
So for the funeral photos, I take hundreds, and I will narrow them down. I will go through them and just narrow them down to the best 100 photos or 200, 300, depending on how long I'm there. People can hire me for an hour. They can hire me for 5 hours. They can. So obviously, the longer I'm there, the more photos I'll have. But they get a digital gallery, so I will email them a link to the photos that they can download, and they can send those to their relatives or friends for everyone to look at if they want to do that. And then also, I believe in prints, tangible photos. So they have the option of either getting an album, where I just make this beautiful heirloom album for them. Otherwise, there's a portrait box, and they receive 5x7 prints in this beautiful portrait box. Because I have very little satisfaction handing over like a digital file. Like, there's no joy in that. Yes, I understand they want digitals, but obviously I'm a believer in prints and tangible art, and so I make sure they have both.
Yeah. That's a very interesting word you used, art. You really are an artist in this creative area that you have been innovative in, and it shows in the work on your website.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's nice to develop a relationship with you before a funeral.
Yes.
Like I said, this is it's not a part of the show, but
yes,
but it is important. Get those photos done, get that photo album ready, because you're going to want it at some point.
Right. Well, and there was a gentleman who he was in his 50s, and he was dying. He had cancer. And so his wife called me, and we photographed his family photos, just with him and his daughter and his family, because they were expecting this, and they wanted photos of him when he was still looking healthy and good. And then, unfortunately, he did pass away, and so she had planned that, and so I photographed his funeral as well, and that was it was a sweet experience. I had not done that before, but again, like, we want to have photos when we're living, and of our lives and of these experiences, and so I, again, always tell people, get photographed.
Yeah. Well, like you say, your memories are brighter and fresher.
Yes.
And when you can look at a photo, it just brings back a lot of that emotion, and it's real. It's real.
Yeah. There was one.
Go ahead.
Oh, just collages. I was just looking at some photos of some collages that I made for a client, and just how memorable they were for the father to have these pictures of his little boy.
Yes. Well, I encourage people, go to the website, MN Funeral Photography, and look at all the great work that Nell's done. We're near the end of the show, folks, and I want to thank you for being here today and listening to this amazing thing. Nell, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
What a great show. We're going to have you back if you're okay with that.
I'm so happy to come back.
That would be great. We hope you enjoyed today's show, folks. Please contact us with any comments or questions you may have regarding today's conversation. You can reach us anytime by voice or text, 612-999-3426. Join us again next Saturday at noon for another broadcast. And thank you for listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about your health and your life. Until next time, choose to live well.